They say some people are meant to find each other, no matter how long it takes, no matter how far they drift apart. My name's Ben Walker, and this isn't my love story. Not exactly. It's about her, and him, and how, somehow, I ended up being the guy standing on the sidelines while fate played its hand. But it's also about what I learned, about timing, about letting go, and about how sometimes the most powerful kind of love is the one you never get to keep. Back then, I worked in Midtown Manhattan as a freelance jazz musician, mostly small gigs in dimly lit lounges, sometimes playing background sets at upscale restaurants. That's how I met Claire Matthews. She was waiting tables at this candlelit bar on the Upper West Side, one of those places where every customer acts like they're too important to smile. But Claire, she was different. She had this energy, soft but confident, like someone who'd seen just enough of the world to still be hopeful about it. The first night I played there, she came over between tables and said, "You make the room feel like it's remembering something beautiful." I laughed and said, "That's a poetic way to ask for a song request." She smiled. "Play something for someone who believes in coincidences." So I did. That night started everything. Over the next few months, we started spending more time together. Coffee after her shifts. Walks through Central Park when the snow fell in big, lazy flakes. She told me about her dream, to open a bookstore cafe someday. She said she wanted to fill it with second-hand books, mismatched mugs, and people who still believed in love stories. I told her about my dream too, to write my own music, not just play other people's. But I was too afraid to fail. We were two dreamers, trying to hold on to something that felt bigger than our lives. But there was always something distant in her eyes, like a piece of her heart was somewhere else. One night, we were sitting on her fire escape, sharing takeout and watching the city lights flicker. She got quiet, then said, "Do you ever feel like you met someone before you were ready for them?" I asked, "What do you mean?" She stared at her cup. "There's someone I met years ago. We only spent a few hours together, but it felt like the universe paused for us. I never saw him again. But sometimes I still think about him." My chest tightened. I wanted to ask, "Why are you here with me then?" But I didn't. Instead, I said, "Maybe fate brings people together more than once, just to see if we've learned what we needed to." She smiled sadly. "Maybe." For the next year, we stayed together. We laughed a lot. We fought sometimes, mostly about my late gigs, her long shifts, her fear of settling down. But deep down, I always knew there was a ghost between us. A man I'd never met, but who lived rent-free in her memory. Still, I loved her anyway. Because love, real love, doesn't always make sense. It's stubborn. It's quiet. It stays, even when it hurts. One rainy afternoon, I found a box in her closet while looking for an umbrella. Inside was a book, Love in the Time of Cholera. Inside the cover, written in neat handwriting, was a name, Ethan, and a phone number. My heart dropped. When she got home, I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just asked, "Who's Ethan?" She froze, then told me everything. Years ago, before me, she met a man by accident at Bloomingdale's. They both reached for the same pair of gloves. They spent one night together, walking, talking, laughing, and then decided to leave it up to fate. If they were meant to be, fate would bring them back together. She'd written her number in that book and sold it to a used bookstore. He'd written his number on a $5 bill and spent it. Neither one ever found the other again. But she never forgot him. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying every moment, every time she'd gone quiet, every faraway look, every moment she seemed somewhere else. The next morning, I told her, "I love you, Claire. But I don't want to be a substitute for someone fate forgot." She cried. So did I. But I knew she needed to find out if that story still meant something. So I did the hardest thing I've ever done. I let her go. Time passed. I moved to Chicago, started teaching music at a community college, and finally recorded my first album, something I never would have done if I hadn't met her. Every song on that record was about her. I didn't expect to ever see her again. But life, like music, loves a good refrain. It was a cold December afternoon. I was back in New York for a friend's wedding, walking through Bryant Park, when I heard someone laugh, a sound so familiar it felt like déjà vu. I turned, and there she was, Claire, standing by the skating rink, wearing the same kind of wool scarf she always wore, holding a cup of cocoa. And beside her, a man. He had kind eyes, that easy confidence I'd never quite had. I didn't need to ask. I knew. It was him. Ethan. She saw me before I could look away. For a second, time stopped. Then she smiled, that same warm, heartbreaking smile I'd fallen in love with. She walked over, her voice soft. "Ben, it's been so long." I nodded. "Yeah." "You look happy." She glanced at Ethan, then back at me. "I am." There was no jealousy in me. No regret. Just peace. Because somehow, seeing her happy felt like closure, like maybe, by letting her go, I'd helped her find what she was meant to have. Before she left, she said, "You taught me what real kindness looks like." I'll never forget that. I wanted to tell her she taught me how to believe in love again. But I just smiled and said, "Take care of each other." And she did. It's been almost 10 years since that day. Sometimes, when I'm playing piano late at night, I still think about her. Not with sadness, just quiet gratitude. I ended up meeting someone else, eventually. Her name's Laura, and she loves the way I get lost in music. She doesn't believe in fate, not really. But she believes in effort. In showing up every day for someone. In choosing love, not waiting for it to choose you. And that's its own kind of magic. When people talk about fate, they usually mean the kind that feels like a miracle. But sometimes, fate doesn't bring two people together. It brings the right people together by teaching us what love isn't first. If I hadn't loved Claire, I wouldn't have learned what it means to let someone go with grace. And if I hadn't let her go, I never would have made space for the love that found me later. So, if you've ever been in love with someone who wasn't yours to keep, remember this. Not every love story is meant to last. Some are meant to change you, quietly, forever. Sometimes, when I'm walking home from a late gig, I see couples holding hands under the streetlights. And I think about that girl with the second-hand book, the snow falling around her, and the boy who believed in destiny. And I smile. Because maybe, just maybe, fate doesn't always give you what you want. Sometimes, it gives you exactly what you need.